What's going on, y'all? Listen, this is part 3 of a 4-part series, The Rise of Black Americas in our Black History Month. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Classism, the rich versus the poor, right? Classism, the rich versus the poor, all right? What's going on? It's another episode of Minding Your Biz. I'm one of your co-hosts, Dr. BlackWealth.
Hello, hello, and it's your girl, Mrs.Fabfinancial. How y'all doing today? What's going on? Talking about the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots.
All right, we've been talking about this for a while, and we're going to always talk about this because it's a thing.
It's a fabric of America.
It's a thing.
Who has and who doesn't have.
Right. And
the power of having versus the power you unfortunately don't have when you don't have.
And
right?
who get to say that?
You know, money says that. Access says that.
Status.
If you don't have any money, you don't have power and access.
I'm sure trying to be on that side of the fence.
I mean, your own personal goal of having is subjective.
Right.
But the society in which we live in dictates and is laid out very plainly on what power and access and money gets you.
Yeah.
Versus if you don't have. And so when we look at why that it exists is what we're going to talk about, right? Why that exists. Why are there people who have money and people who don't have money? And how you get more money?
Right. You know, so
how you get money?
With this subject of classism, rich versus poor, specifically to Black and poor people, I think what I ultimately want, at least from my perspective, for people to understand is, as Black Americans, there is a thing as rich versus poor, and the poor lives in certain conditions that are systematically set up to keep you poor. However, we live in a world of mathematics that's just the law of polarity. It's just natural order of things for there to be it's two sides to a coin. If there's a poor side, guess what? There is a rich and wealthy side, right? If there's a dark side, there's a light side. And so what we are probably going to attempt to do is uncover the fact that there is a rich side to this, and you can, at any given moment, decide to leave the poor class of America and jump over into the rich and the wealthy and live your life here abundantly and free as it was designed to do so, right? And so, yeah, that's what we're going to do. So when I jump into this, I think I want to start from, how I feel about these political conversations, but not for us to get take political to be a sidetrack. I was looking at, as we talked about last episode, integration did it help us, harm us, and we broke down the 1800s, the 1900s, the rise of Black America, even into today, into the civil rights, and how we just had advancement. I feel like civil rights birthed an era where we had the ability to want to be, like Farrah said, fight for our rights, to be included. And I think that same type of attitude followed us well into today, where we fight with politicians for us to just equally be accepted, equally send us money, equally give us job and opportunity. And not that I'm saying that that's wrong, but what I am saying is hold up, wait a minute. At the same time that you fight to be equally integrated, we can also stand up and do for ourselves. We can also figure out how to build businesses, develop business, so we can hire people and start to produce for our own community and our culture without being so heavily dependent on the system and politics within itself. That's what will be my argument there, right? So I'm looking at, like, in 2010 when we had Obama, my man Tavis Smiley orchestrated a conversation in Chicago schools called "What is the Black Agenda?" What the Black Agenda, what it's about. And so this was during the era of Obama. And so the thing that I'm gonna point out was he had people like he had all kind of political leaders and religious leaders there. One of them was the Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so they spoke about. He said, "Listen, Philip Randolph led in 1925 and organized a brotherhood of sleeping car porters. He was the first successful African-American led labor union fighting for jobs and justice, right? This was in 1925, right? This was also during the era of black people being the golden age of business. So 1925, black golden age of business, and we're still fighting for jobs and justice. March on Washington happened 1963. The cry to America was jobs. This is his exact words: jobs and justice. He said 20 years, the 20-year anniversary of the March on Washington, right? The cry was jobs and justice. He said 2010, as they sit there and talk about the black agenda, what is the cry that they had at that table? Because if you go back and watch that YouTube clip, you will see that they were having all kind of conversations on the advancement of black people and what is Obama doing for black people specifically, because a lot of black people voted for him, right? And the cry at that time was still jobs and justice. And I'm looking at it, and it's 2024 today as we speak. And I think our cry still is jobs and justice as we go through the George Floyd situation, even as we move into the pandemic, and even as we got a rise of so-called black businesses doing good throughout America, our cry is still jobs and justice. But the minister said, well, hold on. When are you going to stop asking for them to give you jobs and justice and do for yourself? And that's kind of like the mentality I have when we break down this classism, because racism is a smokescreen. Not that it's not there, but the root of it is you don't have money, which don't give you access to certain ways of life to be able to think different, move different. And when you look at that, as also a cry for jobs and justice in the same shape, form, or fashion. And when we look at the rise of black businesses, it's not enough, and I'm proud of what we did, right? But I also have to hold us accountable, because I hold myself accountable. It's not enough to just start black businesses and go out and register with the Secretary of State, get you a business, learn how to do Turo, stocks, whatever that looks like. It's not enough to just start the business and you still be a mom and pop situation. But we got to try to do better than that and develop our business so that our fight could stop being jobs and justice, and we could be able to provide jobs for our people.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing. My pause is because it's a lot. It's a lot when we talk about rich versus poor and how money really changes a community. But and it starts off with business in general. Most of us start businesses because they come from a place of pain. We're trying to create and generate extra income to help us. We usually don't have the luxury to sit back and think about industries and think about the next big idea, to think about the business, how I'm going to fund it, how I'm going to do this. We usually just go, I'm going to sell some dinners. I'm going to start this eat something sewing business because I want to make some extra money. We really don't have the end in sight or in mind because we're looking at right now what's in front of us. And so a part of that becoming financially independent is also a mindset shift, right? People who are wealthy, people who have money, think about the long game. They take temporary losses for the long-term gain, right? They jump over the quarter to get to the dollar. And so some of us who are fighting for survival right now don't have the time and capacity to think about tomorrow sometimes. They're like, right now, I just need to make money right now. And so I think some of that can be alleviated when if we show up for black businesses, right? We talked about that in a previous episode about that kind of self-hate. Sometimes we just don't rally around each other enough, right? I think about, we talk about George Floyd and we talk about Chauvin, the police officer who had his foot on his neck, or what's the gentleman who killed, is it Tamir Rice, the young man who had the hood over his head?
Trayvon Martin.
Trayvon Martin, right? How problematic as those white people were, guess what their community did? Supported them and galvanized them, got them legal counsel, right, uplifted the sickness of white supremacy, where right is right and wrong is wrong, but their community still supported them, but we don't do that. We have like a self-hate inside of us that no matter what, we're so busy arguing with each other about the minutia that at the end of the day, if we just support each other financially, if one of us, two of us, three of us, four of us, if we could prop each other up and circulate money within us, then collectively we could win. But because of how systematically we were pit against each other, the Willie Lynch, we can't see beyond what's right in front of us, right? As the sinister plan is always looming over us. It's like the shadow, the dark cloud as we're walking is staying with us, right? And raining. It's like, Dad, can we get out of the dark cloud already? You know? So I think us to move forward economically and be rich is education, learning about the system that's put up against us. Yes, racism is the smokescreen for classism. So let's stop focusing so heavy on what we don't have, what the system is doing for us, what the white man is doing for us. We have opportunities right here in 2024 that we did not have 50, 60 years ago that we could take advantage and help our fellow Black man and woman succeed financially. And I think we get really focused on the minutia and not the major goal of helping, like, hey, you know what? She's got a hair care business. All right, well, let's help us. Let's help her. Not only can she start a hair care business that she's selling hair, but what about the people that are producing the hair, right? There are entrepreneurs who right now go to China, go to Indonesia, go to a lot of these Asian countries and get hair, right? Can we help them manufacture? Can we look into making that an industry that we can dominate in? Or what industries can we dominate in and put all of our support behind that, right? And I think when you talk about Tavis and having an agenda and a plan on how us as the Black community can move collectively forward, even if it's in different paths, even if it's in different roads, the ultimate goal is to push us forward economically, right? And to have realistic goals. Okay, Black agenda, what are we doing 2024? Is it produce 10 more businesses? Is it to at least dominate in one industry? Is it to make sure that every man, woman, and child has access to healthcare? I don't know. Something should be on the agenda that we can move collectively forward and have a dialogue about it, right? And
that was actually on his agenda table in that conversation. Yeah. It was all of those things. It was Farrakhan saying, hey, we need to stop relying on the white man and do for ourselves. It was other political leaders. I can't remember off the top of my head. Go back and watch it. But it was other political leaders that was, matter of fact, I bought the book, The Covenant of Black America, where Tavis and another author, they like outlined exactly what we need to do from all fronts. Healthcare was one of them, right? Access to healthcare, but then that's also access to capital. So it's like a cycle. It's also access to capital for us to eat right, so we not overweight and all this other stuff that's keeping us in health the healthcare conditions, right? That's why I was talking with like my sister-in-law is a nurse, and I started looking into the hospitals. I'm like, what's crazy is all the trauma hospitals are where the doctors get paid the most. But where most trauma hospitals are in any city is in the urban cities, where we are in there the most, from whatever type of scenario, diseases, crime. Sure. All kind of stuff where they getting paid the most. And it's still a system, because what you don't realize is although we don't have, we saying we have lack of access to healthcare and the ability to be seen, etc., right? You got more of us who probably on government assistance through Medicaid or Medicare and all that other stuff. But then the government is also funding the doctors on that's how they getting stuff paid anyway. Like, we gonna just run this test, do this and do this, and we're gonna put a pill on the symptom, but not actually kind of cure the pain.
Right, because it's based off what? Money. It's capitalism. Yeah. It's not necessarily the government. It's the private industries that say, this is this drug, you need to push it, right? This is the thing that will help with diabetes, that will help with hypertension, that will help with back pain, that will help with all this. Push this thing, right? And so because our government allows capitalism to its fullest in a free market society, it allows industries and businesses to take advantage. Yeah. Right?
So the conversation, this is not necessarily a question on whether or not, at least from us, that whether or not classism exists or not. We're telling you that it does.
No, it does.
The conversation is wrapped around
how do you maneuver around?
Right, and how do you get out of that from rich to poor,
yeah.
right? And so, before I bring up somebody famous, one of the things I think, right, what is the agenda for 2024? In my opinion, I think scale. There's a lot of Black businesses that are here or minority businesses that are in America. There's a lot of them. When you look at them in retrospect, right, there's a statistic like SBA did a statistic 2018, which is not that far from us, right? Black owners own 3.2 million businesses, Black-owned business, and they employ 1.1 workers, right? So when you look at those numbers, it's like, well, that's good. I'm not saying it's not bad, right? But what's the agenda for 2024? We have a lot of the COVID birthed a lot of coaches and entrepreneurs that are making million, multi-million, some on their way to hit the $1 billion mark, right? Owners like Ryan, that's out of the Gathering Spot I was talking about earlier, right? But the agenda for 2024 moving forward should more so be about scale. How do we scale this thing?
For sure.
And what does that look like and why?
Every generation is going to get faster, better, stronger, right? Initially, it was like we need to form a businesses, right? My grandfather had a convenience store, what some of you may call bodega. But what he didn't have was the skill set and knowledge on how to pass that down, right? So my great aunt, they had laundromats. They were in real estate. But what they didn't have was the knowledge to pass it down, right? To put it in the will, to put it in the trust. So yes, my family currently, the generation I'm in is better. But the people behind me or to the left or to the right of me don't have, can't reap the benefits of what I did, right? So when you think about major families who are in industries that no matter what their children do, the wealth is still there, right? Because they were able to pass something down and create to create dominance in an industry. So I think the new generation coming up are like, hey, I see what they did back there. How can we, if I put in all my efforts today, how can I make sure that's preserved for the generation behind me or the generation to the left and the right of me, my aunts and my cousins, to help move us all forward? And I think that is really key, because a lot of business owners you can start a business, but it's really null and void if you cannot pass that wealth down, that system down.
Or figure out how to scale your business.
Or figure out how to scale it, even if as you scale it.
Yeah. There's a difference between knowing how to make money and running the business.
For sure, right? The running the business is you, right? Running the business and creating a product or service is you, but the industry behind growing and scaling a business is leadership, is management. It's a lot of things that unfortunately we really don't kind of get into, because we initially started that business again just out of survival. So when you think about Ryan from the Gathering Spot, I saw a little bit of his story, right? He was second generation. So he was given the opportunity to start a business from necessity, love,
he was supported
in innovation, right? He was supported versus now some of it I'm sure was through economic, but he wasn't in a survival state of frame and mindset, right? So that he was able to think the next step forward. Like, what does this look like? You mentioned, and this thought just came to me. So, you mentioned like, hey, my who'd you say, like my aunts had a business? My great aunt had several dry cleaning, laundromat and rental property.
Right. So when you look at that,
and my grandfather owned a store in North Philly.
So when you look at that, right, and then I look at it like, I can say the same thing. Like my grandpa owned restaurants, right? Dib and dab in real estate, still to this day, however you want to define it. But what I think my point that I'm trying to make is there was a lot of people who had ownership, and this is like 70s, 80s, 90s, right? But I think it was a wave that because those people didn't understand or didn't have access to mentorship and development to grow and scale their business, that it shut down. It put people like our parents in a position to be like, listen, don't do that ownership stuff because such and such had a business and it failed. You need to go to college. You need to go to get
we didn't have examples to see what that looked like, right? Because when we talk about the system that allows you to do but so much, right? Having that cloud over you. If
right.
partially cloudy, all I could see was kind of right in front of me. So all I know is I'm gonna start this business to feed my family. My grandfather had a store and he had employees, so he didn't have access to, well, what does a plan look like if I retire?
Yeah.
How do I keep this money, this engine, to help my generations and generations, right?
And that's what I'm saying, like that, like we talk about how policies are birthed, like, so 1800s people started businesses because we was looking for the survival and to free ourselves from slavery and buy our freedom from the slave master, which produced us to do business. We started doing well. Mm-hmm. Some of us started to do really well. 1900s produced more businesses, right? Then specifically Jim Crow said, hey, we only black on black, white on white to do business in that era. And I think that blood is still within us. But what I'm actually kind of pushing for was the fact that we had a lot of people who started businesses because they couldn't see how to grow it, scale it, and pass it down. Mm-hmm. It almost looked as if they worked all day. They was always in the store. It was like business was had a negative connotation.
For sure.
So like our parents pushed you need to go to school, get a degree, and get a job, versus supporting people who looking to start their business. That's why you get a lot of people who like, no, I want to start a business. And what's the first thing everybody say? Your family ain't gonna support you. And I think that was birthed through that era of people just not knowing, not having mentors, not having the thing to figure it out. You know what I mean? But you have certain outliers like Reginald Lewis, who was a black lawyer that went private equity really in New York. Outliers like that's examples. And I don't think we kind of like speak on those examples more than we speak on our failures.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which keeps us like, no, I'm going to just go to school. I'm going to and then we complain about stuff, which I feel like we have a right to say there's no jobs for black people. There's no jobs for this. But one of those things to solve that is to develop black businesses to be able to be in a position to hire. Like Ryan threw out a statistic that was crazy to me. He was like 97% of black businesses are like mom and pop. They don't even have employees.
That's right.
So whether or not I go to a HBCU or PWI, it don't really matter, because at the end of the, not that I'm saying that the don't misunderstand me, that HBCUs don't matter.
Right, the outcome.
What I'm saying is once you graduate, you got to go into the job market. Mm-hmm. And where are you going? You going down to a white institution. Yeah. You're going to corporate America, which is majority white than black. You're not looking to be hired by, ain't no black firm such and such is recruiting and bringing in people because the black businesses are not developing.
For sure.
So you got to look at that from that perspective.
No, for sure. And I think, what you're saying is 100%. And I think, supporting businesses where we can is important. So I think if we go into the community and we talk about financial literacy and entrepreneurship and helping industries grow, I mean, from we talked about this, a couple episodes ago, how we need to be involved in every aspect to help push, different thought patterns and mindsets on how to grow business and really push us forward. You know what I mean? You don't know what you don't know, right? And so when I look back at my grandfather, what he wanted to do was he wanted to provide for his family, but he also wanted to be acknowledged, right? He wanted to move his family outside of the ghetto, in a sense, right? Him and my grandmother was one of the first few black families that moved into a predominantly German neighborhood at the time, right?
When it was mixing neighborhoods.
Right. And so then they start moving out, right? The white people start moving out, moving up into Chestnut Hill,
going further
away, right? So
Cedric said, white people go to the moon, I'm coming to.
Right. So, but that's that mindset of their ice is colder and not, I'm going to stay in my own neighborhood
and develop it
and build that up and bring industries together, because we were pit against each other.
Yeah.
So I'm already going, I want to be where they are because mine is not it. Yeah. Right. So that Willie Lynch thing is serious, right? It carries with us, because if he would have had a different mindset to say each one teach one, all of y'all in here, I got a store. I have some economic opportunity here. I'm going to own this building and buy it, and versus the next one next to that and the one next to that.
Yeah.
How can I create an industry? How can we all bring together and own this block?
Yeah.
Right? How do we do that? And so he didn't have the mindset or the vision, right? And not to his fault, but based on the conditioning that was around him for him to even think that way. It was like, don't think about the man to the left of you. Only think about yourself and look over here. Our neighborhoods are better. Our ice is colder. And so that's what you're obtaining, right? That's what your vision is toward. You're really not thinking about your community. I don't think, not everybody in its entirety, because I look at people in that generation, they all wanted to move out. Even as they had education, they had economic advancement, they wanted to remove themselves from the Black community to something else they thought was greater and better, which was propaganded for them to think that way. You know?
An era I was like young in that I feel like should come back in 2024 that was a little bit lost was like the Black Pride era. Like that. And that, what was that, the like 80s, 90s, where it was just like a heavy push on
it was like
Black Pride. Like,
they had their pics and their fences.
You know what I mean? Because they pushed like for you to just like, you are loved. Your curly, kinky hair is beautiful. You a God, right? The Black man, Black woman is God, right? It's power within us, right? And then it was reaching back. And when people were in that study that the nation talk, the teachings, the 5%, the Black Pride situation, they was studying, and they could pull out facts.
They say we are great. We
did this. We did that. And it's not enough of that. And when you look at like from generation to generation, when I think about like my grandparents on my mom and dad's side went through a lot. And it's like now that I'm questioning things that makes me have conversations with them, which makes them be forthcoming on like their past.
For sure.
It should really be the opposite, but that's that whole Willie Lynch situation. We're not passing down fables and stories anymore through storytelling of our history, our family history, right? Because when I look at like our father's side of the family, they had, at one point had 100 acres. Nobody's really telling that story. It's almost like a touchy subject. Nobody really telling that story. My mom's side of the family, her grandma was given land, like they was promised but through the slave owner, and we had a whole like block in southern Montezuma, Georgia. Still do. You know what I mean? We're on the left side over here. We go down there right now. My cousin's over here, the main house in this cul-de-sac and stuff.
Yeah.
But nobody's on that side still is telling that story on like, what was that like? I get that, great grandma clean after white people and stuff, but then how she get the land, and then nobody's telling that story about what we need to do to give you the pride to go back in there to keep it. That's why you can sell grandmama house today.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's why you get rid of it, because you don't have nothing attaching you to it. And that's the mistake that the young and the old is missing out on. I'm not gonna put it on one side, because we not curious to be even pushing to ask our grandparents, and they have the mindset like, listen, you got to soldier on, push on. I had to do it. You just what you gonna do? This how you gonna figure it out? And we lost that connectivity to connect us to our community. For sure.
And I think it's the lack of accountability. And I think when you want to move yourself forward economically, right, there's some things and mindsets you need to shake up, and there's some things you need to start doing, right? Accountability and perseverance is one. And so when we don't talk about how our great-great-grandparents obtained, the fundamental thing or mindset in that is to persevere, because trust and believe it wasn't easy, right, for them to obtain what they did. So when we look at today, we don't want to persevere. We want it to be right now in our generation to see it. Sometimes we have to do things for our generation behind us. I'm almost certain that when your great-great-grandmother obtained the land, that she wasn't like, oh, I'm a build industry for me today to flourish. It was about my generations behind me.
Yeah.
And I think when we talk about wealth building, immediately you got to think about the generations behind you. To be wealthy and to think about how to protect your assets is not about you today. the mere notion is about the people behind you. And so when you talk about wealth building, that's the one thing we have to shake up. It's not really about what's in front of you. It's not about today. It's what's behind me. What am I leaving my son and my daughter so that they don't have to start from zero?
Yeah.
And I think a part of that is not glamorizing getting it out the mud, right? Even that mindset is sick to me.
Yeah.
We got to get it out the mud. Well, why? Why do my children have to get it out the mud? Why can't they start on the street with the grass? Why can they start on level 1? Why can't they start with advantages?
But that's like an emotional answer, because truth be told, and this might offend people, but it is what it is. For you to say like get it out the mud, that's not only is that because you felt like you had to, but the other part of it is you're still in the mud. You still haven't figured out how to scale your business. You just don't know. And instead of saying like, I haven't figured this out, son, daughter, you put it on them to say, no, you got to go get it out the mud. You need to go do this, that, and the third, instead of developing on what you don't know. A prime example of that is, if I don't know if people are a fan, but I'm a huge fan, Yellowstone. Like the history of that from the show, the history of the show was always one thing. Everything they did in their business life or in their political arena in their town was to protect and preserve the land. He said, we got to protect the ranch. The ranch been in our family since the 18-something. However you want to look at it, they stole it, whatever that looks like. But they principle was we got to protect and preserve the land. So what did the current dad do? He said, no, son, you need to go over here. I'm going to send you to law school.
Yep.
I'm paying for you to go to Harvard. Why? Because I need you to be able to fight this thing politically with these laws, and politics is just laws.
Oh, is it now? Is it now? Oh, wait. Can we do did he say?
Right, but let me finish. At the same time,
it's a 3-pronged strategy.
At the same time, he sent his daughter out to learn finance. So you need to learn how money works, so we can build this economically and know how to invest and what we need to do to build a business, right? And then we left one person on there because somebody got to learn how to run the actual business, the business of our ranching business, right? And so we lose that. And when we say get it out the mud, it's not that we really gotta. It's not that they like. It's almost like they're forced to do that because they don't want to take the accountability to learn and say what they don't know. I feel like that's okay.
I think that too, but I think it is some of that Willie Lynch. You have to do it and work on your own because I was able to do it, so you need to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And so what slavery did was pull us apart as a family, right? And so we're not thinking about us. We're thinking about me. So when you say, well, you
keep us poor.
Correct. You got to get it out the mud means that I am so singular focused on me.
Yeah.
Yep, you can do something right now, but once you get 18, we ready to kick them out the house.
Yeah, and they don't even know.
They're not prepared.
They're not ready.
You ain't teach them how to budget, how to manage money, how to do anything. You need to go get a job and not say, well, wait a minute. How can I help support my son or daughter? We could create a job or industry for them.
Yeah.
If I was able to get myself here, I definitely want to be able to have my children start where I stopped.
Yeah.
Why do they now have to start back from zero? That's like running the race backwards. I don't even get that concept.
And that just pulled, like, as we kind of move this thing along, that breaks down the psychological trauma that we have. Because when I look at it, I'm like, man, to be honest with you, I was too young to be like out on my own, married early. All this stuff was a product of a condition that we was in. Didn't know nothing of what I was doing. Probably shouldn't have went into the military, right? All these different things. And I can sit there and say that, like, my mom put me in these shoes, this, that, and the third. But the psychological trauma I'm talking about is, if I was to go back and say, well, why was this like this? Is you having the emotional intelligence to just accept, like, not that I'm coming at you to blame you, but I'm trying to understand what was going on in your world. Oh, I got it. Your mom didn't teach you. Oh, I got it. Grandma didn't show you. Oh, I got it. Her mama didn't. And so if we was to be, but if I come to you and say you didn't do this, we feeling attacked. Like, what?
Yeah.
Boy, girl, all the food I bought in here, I got you a place to live, you got a place to sleep, you better be grateful for what you have. I'm just like, no, it's not that I'm not grateful for what we have, but I understand that we could be in a better position, and you could have done that. You chose not to. Now I got to deal with it. So I'm trying to understand what this looks like.
It's the accountability, right? It's the accountability.
That's being real,
right? It's the wealthy person and the wealthy mindset is accountable for what they're doing, so they can move forward. If you take no accountability, you cannot move forward, because you're going to keep making the same mistakes, because you don't even recognize that there is a mistake, or you don't even recognize that there are things that are flawed in your system, in your business, or your makeup. So you have to take accountability. A wealth mindset or a rich man's mindset to move forward, to create something of long lasting, is accountability, is perseverance, is having that entrepreneur mindset and spirit, and it's continuing education, right? Almost like that SWOT analysis, but doing it on yourself, on your business, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. That is the thing that separates the rich mindset from the poor mindset. They recognize their strengths. They recognize their weaknesses, their opportunities, and their threats, and they handle it and move forward. The broke, poor mindset is victim. They are uneducated. They don't move forward, and they're looking for a handout. And so if you want to move forward with your business, your wealth, then you have to have your own personal SWOT analysis. You cannot be a victim. You cannot blame the system of racism and classism. It is there. It is looming around us like the cloud, but you have to learn how to move past that. And if you keep victim blaming yourself, that you can't, the white man is this, I don't have the examples, nobody told me or showed me, you will continue to be in the poor man mindset.
So we numbers people, so I'm gonna bring some numbers up, right? So there's an article that came out from the U.S. Census released in 2021. So as we talk about like all these stories, it's showing that it's an estimated 140,000 Black-owned businesses that's employed in the country that earn $141 billion in annual receipts, employing 1.3 million workers. So we're doing good.
Not 1.3 million. Right. That's what's our population? That's like.
I mean, hey, it's something. It could be. Before that, I'm sure it was zero. So.
I mean, that's good. Let's give a round of applause.
Right.
So it says, but we got work to do.
They claim 14.2% of the U.S. population, but only 2.3% of them are employer that have employees as a firm. So there's about 3 million Black-owned businesses without employees, right? So there's a lot of Black businesses without employees.
That's a lot of opportunity there.
Right now, if you were to Google, as I'm sitting here talking, what is the thing that on why Black businesses can't grow?
It's probably
I'm gonna
access
go to the board a little
funding.
Bit. The first two things that pop up is access to funding, and then it's the not knowing how to go about funding, which means there's lack of knowledge in business, right? So when we build businesses, all of us who got businesses, right now, I'm not going to tell you we're not going to break down how to scale a business just yet, right? I'm going to save that for another episode. But I like to educate people because I feel like most of us don't have an understanding of the entities that we even forming and what we could do and what we can't do with them, right? So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to break down this thing that everybody on the internet is talking about. You want to have your trust owned by your management company, this. I'm going to show you exactly what it is and what each function of the businesses are supposed to do. So at minimum, you understand the function. And then on another episode, we'll break down the scaling of it with getting access to capital, right? Because one thing we do know is Biden, as I close, I'm going to close with that statistic. Biden produced the ability for the SBA to put more funding into Black businesses, which is working. So all of our institutions are owned by a trust, right? And so in this instance, we want to get an irrevocable trust. So it also, when you do your taxes, is annotated on a 1040. The thing about the irrevocable trust is that it doesn't require us to have an EIN, right? So with the revocable trust, we don't need to get an EIN. It's interchangeable with our Social Security number. Interest in fact, they both 9 digits. On my left side is operations. My right side is assets. most people say, hey, get the LLC. That's your management company. That's what this is. We're going to call it MC. This company, what it does is it acts as a what it does is it acts as a company that holds everything that you're looking to do. So what does this look like? A lawyer sets up my trust. Me and my spouse are trustees of the trust. It's two people down here that runs this trust. They're called trustees. From the moment we set this up, we are no longer from the moment we set this trust up, it's like a baby that we producing that has its own living organism. We got to follow the rules of the trust that we set up. We'll put language in the trust that says, hey, this trust can own assets, business, banking, all these things. And so it owns a business. So it owns our holding company. This company is the thing that shelters all our income. This also acts as a management company, and what it really is, y'all, is a private equity company. I'll explain that another time. This LLC will start to own every other thing that you own. So, for instance, one live example, my holding company owns my company, Eagle Financial Group. We own this podcast that's Minding Your Biz, which is a partnership. And it's owned by my company and Ferris Company, right? And then if I was to decide to own another company, let's just flip to the other side, real estate, that'll be owned by something else. Now, we separated real estate from hard businesses because the left side is operational businesses. That means we're actually actively getting money. We're a publishing company. We're a finance company. We're a videographer company. We are whatever that looks like that you have. Turo company. On the right side is our real estate. You want to separate your assets so that if any one of them is in limbo, you have the opportunity to save them. So your trust, guess what? Directly owns a real estate holding company, right? Some people tell you to get them in Wyoming, things of that nature. And then you start owning the buildings. So not only do we need to focus on building and scaling, we need to focus on owning the assets of the buildings that we in. So get out of the houses and we start to own the corporate entity that house our employees, right? Or we have homes that we passing down that can produce generational wealth in its own entity, right? So this is the beginning basis of what that looks like. You trying to get from the poor to the rich. One of the things that you can do is many things that you can do, but I'm only going to focus on one thing on Mind Your Biz, owning businesses. And so this is how you want to set your business up to be able to operate and function. And you can move as a business, walk as a business. And guess what? In this operational system here, this trust is the foundation for you passing down assets to your children and their children and their children's children, right? Because I live off principles. What the Bible say, you are to leave an inheritance for your children's children. And so that's what this looks like. And that's exactly what this looks like.
That's business. That's really good for a business, but that's also a really good blueprint for family business.
For sure.
Even if I necessarily don't have a business, but I have life insurance, I have properties, even things to pass down, I could do that through the trust, right? So that my children aren't kind of tied up in the minutia of government inheritance.
for sure.
But that is a way I feel like us as a Black community can move forward in terms of having a rich mindset and moving us financially forward, because now your children aren't getting it out the mud. They're not starting from zero.
Yeah. So as we wrap this up, y'all, make no mistake about it. Black, poor, you have the ability to change your situation with the decision that you make. There's enough examples. There are plenty of examples out there to show you a blueprint on how to get it. Real estate, ownership, stocks, bonds, whatever that looks like. You don't have to stay in the conditions that you're in. Even as a business owner, there's another side to you just striving or surviving as a business owner. There's a scale. We'll talk about that on another episode. But you have the ability to do it, right? When we talk about the rich versus the poor, the classism, understand the system is designed to keep us down. And if we allow it to keep us down, if we allow them to feed us, we allow them to starve us.
That's right.
The ability for us to flip that switch and say, listen, I want to switch from poor to rich is at the flip of a decision. It's a decision making, right? And so we want to encourage you to do that. before we wrap out of here, here's some books that gives you the history of the Black Dollar by Angel Rich is a really good book that teaches the history of Black throughout from the 1800s up until present about how Black people have came up economically, right? So talk about Freedman Bank and all kind of stuff. Another one to kind of get into is Race and Economics with Walter Williams. This book's talk about not necessarily us complaining about the system, but understanding how politics was used to kind of keep us down, but not really, in the smokescreen behind it and how you can come out on top, basically. He debunks that, right? And so we want to make sure that you are educated. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe.
Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment for us, y'all. We in this thing. Yeah. We want you to mind your biz. We want you to help us, help you, help us as a community, guys. So tell a friend to tell a friend to come to YouTube, check out the Mind Your Biz podcast. Yeah. And we are signing out. We done.
And don't forget to keep minding your biz. And that's a wrap, y'all. See you next week. What's going on? We're glad to have you at another episode of Minding Your Biz podcast. Listen, everything that you hear or see on this podcast episode is for educational purposes only. We have not seen your books. We have not seen your specific situation. Make sure you please seek your financial advisor for anything pertaining to your situation. Peace. All right, y'all. It's a wrap.
Listen, like, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends to come check us out at the Mind Your Biz podcast, y'all.
And we'll see y'all in another episode of Minding Your Biz. Peace.